you've done the morning routine, you walked, you meditated, you got your calendar right, you're going through the day, and you get that one email or that one text that absolutely triggers you. And the emotion here reference was anger. Like it's that one that you're like, you know, you get that lawyer email, you light up. You get that email from that person, you just light up. In that, right, that moment of like, you know, you're pissed, that angry, yeah, like something just triggers you. Walk us through kind of on your greatest days, how you would handle it, on your worst days, how you would handle it.
Yeah, so what's interesting is I've been doing this therapy. I will tell it to anyone and everyone. It's called internal family systems. And the idea is that I am self, and I am the observer of parts that present themselves to me, that believe themselves to be there to help me. And they don't realize, so anger or anxiety or fear, they don't realize that they have a negative attribution in the world. They just think that they're there to help. And the role that I end up having in that triggered moment is to sit down and appreciate that I am not angry. I am the observer of my anger, which maybe sounds woo-woo, but I'm telling you to say I am not angry, but I, as Dave, am the witness to my anger presenting itself. And now I am going to engage in a conversation with that anger. I actually try to make my anger into a caricatured avatar of a person and sit with it and say, why are you here? What is actually at the root of why you believe to be, what role do you think you're playing, or how do you believe to be helping me? And if I'm able to like pull on the thread with enough rope, and by the way, this though, it takes, like I gotta take I'm gonna take 10, I'm gonna go walk outside, I'm gonna find a space, and I'm gonna try to, in that space that's separate from my every other thing that's happening in life, have this conversation. What role do you believe to be playing? And with enough dialogue, I can actually understand, oh, this is a trigger that comes from a way that I was disrespected when I was this age with that person. Is this actually what's happening here? Or is this just something that is reminding me of an echo from 20 years ago? And if the answer is, yep, it's just that echo, then I can say, oh, okay, that's not what's happening here. Hold on, let me redirect to this as the possible way for me to move forward. It doesn't mean that, by the way, that anger might still, I mean, like it could be justified. There could be reason for it to exist, but rather than acting on it without getting to ask it a few questions, asking a few questions ends up usually giving me a little more clarity on how to best approach solving why it believes to be there.
I love that externalization of it, of placing it a little bit outside of ourselves, just in the sense of like, okay, I feel it, but this is here. And I love that question you asked. You guys, I hope you took a note on that, is why are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, anger, you're here. I feel you. What's up? Why are you here? What is that thing that caused you to be here? What's your hope? What's your intention? You know, what is the thing that you want me to do next? And then having a good debate with that. So, because sometimes that's not the thing that should win. Yeah, that's really, really good.
Hi there.
Bless you, bless you, bless you. I feel privileged to speak with you.
I feel privileged to speak with you, Phyllis.
Thank you. I'm thinking about the 85%, 10%, 5% group. The 10% group is my struggle. I'm sure that's familiar. I dearly love some of those people. And I find myself struggling with how to let go with care and not have that be just a simple brush aside of someone else's feelings who has been involved long-term in my life and my personal struggle. So I'm trying to get some advice from you on how to make that transition away from that tie that seems as though I'm caring about that person.
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, that 10% bucket is the hardest for every single one of us, because that misalignment in values, or them speaking through the lens of their fear wrapped in love, man, that's the hardest. So you are super normal in that feeling the way that it does. The biggest headline is, this is not an invitation to push these people away from us or not have them as a part of our life. They are staying a part of our life. We love and crave love from them. We will always most likely love and crave love from them. The question that I think we have to answer is, are we comfortable making them uncomfortable so that we can live in truth? Or are we willing to maintain their comfort at the expense of our truth, or at the expense of our comfort, right? And this isn't even so much about, being comfortable necessarily as it is, I come back to, and the way that it makes it a little bit easier for me. When I'm trying to answer this question every day, I was created for a purpose. I believe you were created, Phyllis, for a purpose. There is this now set of things that you would need to do to honor the intention, that deliberate design that you were very specifically put on this planet for. And deciding to keep other people in that 10% bucket happy at the expense of honoring the deliberate design of your creator is something that, like, when you put those kind of stakes around it, okay, I'm going to be okay making my mother, who I love, uncomfortable with my decision to honor what I believe I'm on this planet for, if she feels uncomfortable in me taking a step in that direction. What it requires is actually spending time explaining why you're making a decision that may in fact make them uncomfortable in a way that has them still feeling heard and respected, even though you're deviating, and a decision in some respects to have them just agree to disagree, just not necessarily understand. Because if you wait until you get to a place of consensus with the people in that 10% bucket, you'll never take action. You'll never, ever fully get to complete consensus. So you're going to have to decide, is living in my truth and honoring this intention of why I'm on this planet more important than maintaining the comfort of every single person inside of my life that I crave love from? The answer, of course, is yes. Doesn't make it easy, but it's yes. So, and I can see someone just wrote down, like, having a little bit of like time inside of a conversation around people pleasing, reading anything inside of codependency. I am someone who has been long time working on my own codependent stuff. Keeping other people happy was one of these things. I went to a Tony Robbins thing when I was very beginning of my personal development journey. Answer that question that I'm sure many have been asked if you've ever been to a UPW event. From whom did you crave love from most? Who did you have to be to get that love between your mom and dad, right? I wanted the love of my mother. Who did I have to be? I had to achieve, right? So keeping my mother happy through achievement is a thing that now transcends into the way that I have tried to maintain relationships, sometimes in healthy ways, often in unhealthy ways, to get the kind of love that I was hoping for as a child. I would do the same kind of work. What are the kind of things that you needed as a child from one of your parents, and who did you have to be to get that? Is there any of that that's manifesting in the way that you're trying to, in a way that can be codependent, keep them pleased at the expense of who you'd hope to actually be, when you can live in integrity with your truth, even as it comes at the expense of what you previously may have had to do to get that love? You are going to feel different about yourself in a way that their love could never have filled, period.
I think I'm most concerned about what I think of as physical harm. And I'm talking about employees. We are in the process of shutting down our business, and we are trying to sell it, but it appears that that's not going to happen. And I have employees who are going to take this emotionally and physically hard. So I'm trying to reconcile that relationship. It doesn't quite fall into the 10%, and it doesn't quite fall into any of them, or a little bit of all of them. So
as a person who has had, unfortunately, I mean, number one, I hate that you are in that situation. I've also been through many restructurings, and unfortunately I've had to let a lot of people go. I've never let someone go without having someone from security sitting outside of my office. So
understand.
Make sure that you are safe. Like, take precautions. If you even sense that there's the possibility of somebody using physical force, like, be safe, and find a way to connect with them in as humane and decent a way, of course you would, but be safe first, for sure.
Sure. Well, thank you, Dave. I really
Good luck, Phyllis. Cheering for you.
How do we handle one-sided friendships where it seems like they don't care about my stories or my life?
This is going to sound very hard to hear, but when someone tells you how they feel about you, believe them.
Yeah.
And so I think, unfortunately, and I trust me, I have myself been on the other side of not knowing why I keep asking, when are we going to hang out? Hey, do you want to come over? Then I'd start to like sweeten the pot, like, hey, the hot tub's fixed, or hey, like, right? And when you realize that, oh wow, the last 5 exchanges were ones that I initiated, that I was trying to, but it's never been reciprocated. That person is telling you very clearly that they don't value your friendship the way that you might, and you need to listen to that. And not even, like, frankly, like I used to take it so personally, and I really, what I said, friends come into my life in seasons, and if they're there at a certain time, they're there for a certain reason. And when that relationship ends, I still get to hold on to and have appreciation for all that it was while it was there. Tina, let's get to a question.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. My question was, in a situation where you've always been listening to others and doing what they are, basically people pleasing, for 35 years of my life now, how do you figure out what your core values are? You know that you stand for something, but you don't know what those, how do you put that into words?
Yeah, like the things that I would say more than anything are, where I would start with your like, for me, I started with, what is the intention of my creator? I really believe that I have been placed on this planet with very specific design, that I've been given a certain set of skills, that I have a certain number of talents and gifts. And when I think about the values that I have, my value in trying to honor that intended design has me then trying to come up with a list of things that would make it a thing that could be honored, right? So, and again, you don't have to believe like I believe, but whatever you believe your reason being on earth is, right? There, you have purpose. You have a very, like, you have only had your life experience. You are the only person on this planet who has exactly the set of skills that you have. So what values might you create to allow those things to have maximum impact? What values might you need to have to allow those things to tap into your personal passions? What values might you need to have to allow those things to be fully allowed an opportunity for mastery, right? Like where you might develop some of the skills that you know you have that you want to just dive even deeper on. That's, like, but I will say this too, like my values have changed as seasonal times in life have changed. And so you spoke of having a child who's sleeping, God bless, right? So your values in this season likely also are looking through the lens of you as a parent. If you're in a relationship, it might also include that, right? So I would just make a list of, if you can almost reverse engineer some of the stuff that we did. I'd make a list of your essentials and see if maybe there's something that comes out of your essentials that now is informing a little bit of your values. Because like, what do you believe is essential in your life? Like providing and caring for your child, I'm going to guess, is one of them. Preserving their sleep certainly feels like one. But I would truly, though, I would go back and just ask this question. You're on this planet for a reason. What is that reason? Why are you here? Right? Like you want to matter in some way, and you do. But how do you, in mattering, allow the values that you have to actualize your purpose? And I would just like start there. And maybe it's that you have to like pull some strings inside of curiosities that you have just to see like what you have passion for. I hope that helps.
Really does.
Number one, I would say this. You have values. So like, first thing you have to know is like, I know they're there. I just have to do a little bit of work to try and dive into how I can take what I know exists and bring it to the light. Knowing that it's there, you're going to just now be scanning the horizon for the evidence that's going to lead you to actually being able to zero in on it, and you'll get it.
And how do you get away from that fear of actually believing in your values and staying, because I come from a background where family controls everything.
Yeah. So any fear that you have around that is about storytelling that has been put on you, programming that has been put on you by other people. So what I do is I ask, who is the storyteller? Do they have credibility? And do they have credibility on this topic in my life? And here's the thing, like if they're family, they may in fact have some credibility, right? But are they credible as people who should tell you how you ought to live your life because of their beliefs? A lot of times I've been able to free myself from the things that were programmed inside of me by realizing that while they may be well-intended, they may in fact be storytelling their fear wrapped in love, that their opinion or perspective doesn't have any kind of application in my life because of the context. They are thinking about their life in their context, not my life in mine. So I can respect that. Thank you very much for your concern, and I can be free from it. Thank you very much for your concern.
Thank you so much.
Joe, what is your question?
I'm discovering the gifts that I have, and I'm lacking the clarity of really how to apply them. I'm a software developer by trade, but I'm not really fulfilled in that arena. I love to create things, and I feel that I'm here for some bigger purpose. I love helping people, and I'm just really struggling with where and how to do that, and really finding ways to uncover that within me. So I don't know if that's lacking confidence in some of the signs that I'm getting, or what. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on how to attack that.
Well, the way that I've attempted to attack it is by starting with, what do I stand for? So I've asked myself four questions in this question of how do I best unleash the gifts that exist inside me? So the first question is, what do you stand for? Right? Setting some guardrails around your personal values so that anything you decide to go do honors the things that you stand for most. So one of my personal values is work to live, don't live to work, right? So knowing that that's one of my personal values, anything I'm entertaining in what I go do next couldn't require lengthy travel, couldn't come at the expense of my ability to coach a baseball team that I'm super on fire for, right? I need to create centeredness, and by knowing what I stand for, I have some guardrails around what I can say yes to, and maybe more importantly, what I can not say yes to. The second question that I ask is, who do you want to be? Right? Who do I want to be? Because the question of my why was formed out of trying to find the converging, overlapping circles between what I have personal passion for, what I have great competency for, what might afford me to bring light into the world, have impact, and where I can make money. Right? So as I think about the convergence of these four things, what do I love? What am I great at? What could afford people some kind of impact? And how can I make some money to support my family? That why ends up asking this question of, well, then, okay, against those gates, who do you want to be? And so in some ways, it ends up being somewhat of a personal brand, something of like the reputation that I'd like to be known for or as. So that as I try to narrow in on, right, I know what I want to be. I also know what I don't want to be. It again is a second set now of guardrails that says you can do these things, but can't do that. For me, there's four big pillars of the work that I want to try and do inside of this crazy space that I'm operating in. And that is, I'm a parent, I'm into personal development, I've had experience in business and leadership, and I'm really into fitness and health right now. And so as I think about the things I will say yes to, I just turned in a kid's book around this idea that I had with me trying to teach personal development ideas to my 3-year-old daughter, right? The idea of planting seeds in young humans that might make a resource that I create for adults in nonfiction or a platform like this an unnecessary thing because they already believe that they can be anything, that lights my heart on fire. So now I know, okay, anything I say yes to has to align with my values. What do you stand for? And then secondarily, who do you want to be? The third thing then, really dives into this question that I think you're starting with, which is how can you use your gifts?
Yeah.
And so for me, since I've already eliminated so many different fields that I could consider, or so many different environments that might violate what I stand for, it's now narrowed the field on things I can actually think about. So now, okay, what are the industries or business sectors that actually tap into my personal passions? What are the things that might lead me to getting one step closer to who I'd hope to be because of what I know that experience would afford me in the evolution of who I'm trying to become? And so for me, in some ways, it started with casting this vision of who I'd hope to be 5 or 10 years from now, and backing into it by asking, well, how could I use my gifts today that would get me one step closer to actualizing this vision of who I'd hope to be? And the last question that I have to ask is, well, then what's the immediate plan, right? This is where you end up setting some very, very specific goals, right? If you want to be a writer and you've identified that is the calling of your life, you have personal passion, you're good at it, it would afford light to people, and you can actually make some money from it, then identifying where you are on the journey to become a writer is the thing you'd have to do. All right. Do you need to actually write the dang book? Do you need to find a class that would teach you how to write the dang book? Do you need to sit with other people who've written books to understand the process of creating a framework around how to write a book? Do you need an agent? Do you need to have a relationship with a publisher? Whatever it might be. But as I've been able to then dig into, okay, what's the most immediate next best thing that I can do in creating an opportunity that uses my gifts, that's aligned with who I want to be, and is connected to what I stand for? Now I can make a list of those short-term things that would create small wins that get me one step closer. And this is a very iterative process. So, what makes sense for you today may not make any sense 3 or 5 months from now. It's why you got to keep doing it over and over, but at least you'll have a sense on what's the next right thing to do. What's the next best thing to do? And the thing that was always overwhelming for me, I try to figure all of it out. Like, how do I figure out the next 10 years? No. You need to figure out the next 3 months, then figure out the 3 months after that, and just keep making the next best decision that gets you a step closer to where you want to go. Understanding that, by the way, you may start pulling on a thread that 3 months in reveals this is not connected to my passion. I don't actually have enough curiosity about this to follow it all the way to the end, right? Like, curiosity as a starter is such an important thing, because like just playing in a whole bunch of spaces where you have curiosity, it's going to show you which thing might actually lead to passion, which can unlock purpose, which can unlock fulfillment and meaning, right? But if you start with what are you actually curious about, that'll get you down the road of how can you use your gifts further and faster than almost any other exercise.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, because that's exactly right. Because I'm in that space of I want to figure out all of it right now, and I want it to be exactly right, and then I'm not doing anything, and I'm absorbing all of this, personal development kind of stuff and growing, but I'm not acting, and I'm trying to figure it all out now.
Yeah, I will say one of the things that's been helpful too is just stating the vision of who you'd hope to be in statements that use present tense as though they've already happened. Right? You don't know how they're going to happen, but by doing a present tense statement of what will happen, unconsciously your brain starts making connectors in the world to figure out how to reconcile the truth that you've stated with what would also have to be true in the world. And so in some ways, it just takes a little bit of faith that the higher power, the universe, energy, connections, people are going to present themselves. But when you believe that it's going to happen, you'll see it. You'll see the people. Oh, geez, I didn't even know this was the person I needed to meet to make the connection that would get me one step closer to this thing I'd like to do or a person I'd like to be.
Right. Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Wendy.
Hi.
Wendy PG.
I think it's funny because I'm wearing a dream is a wish your heart makes. And I said at the beginning of this year when I joined GrowthDay that I'm going to talk to you and
Yes,
we're going to
you
become
are.
friends. So
we're
I'm very
best
grateful
friends
for
now,
this.
Wendy. Come on, we're best friends.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to just say, when you said, you want us to see ourselves in your story, have an empathy bridge, I feel like I really relate to that. I've gone through a lot in my life, that kind of relates to what you've been through. And I remember sitting many, many times on my back patio and just staring off into the sky. I'm a connoisseur of the sky because that's where I feel like there's so much greater than me that I don't have answers to, and that gives me comfort in the chaos. You know, I had a grandmother that was murdered. My dad died in a horrific motorcycle accident. My stepmom survived. I lost 3 babies. I almost lost my life. I went through a bad divorce. I've been through infidelity, all this stuff. And I met my husband. We have our 2 amazing rainbow babies. And I feel like my stepdad's going through terminal colon cancer right now. And I feel like life keeps presenting lessons over and over again until you're ready for them. And I don't think it was until Brendan introduced GrowthDay and I really looked at myself and reading your last book and taking your challenge that, man, this life isn't about anyone else. This is Wendy's life, Wendy's journey, Wendy's lane. What is it that I'm trying to learn from it? And I really feel like I have lived in the bitterness. I've lived in the chaos. I've lived in that struggle of just wearing my awfulness as a garb of comfort and security. And you were actually one of the proponents of why I just turned 40 and I went to Hawaii and I got this anchor, because I know I'm made for so much more than staying in my safe harbor. Like 40, a lot of people say, oh, I'm settling in my life, but no, this is the beginning of my life. My children are going to be 3 and 5. I have so much more that I want to show them. And I have learned through your teaching, Brendan's teaching, like it's the simple reframe is the reframe that I need to hold on to, knowing that now, even though I'm going through hell right now, I've been able to look back and see, you know what, Wendy, you have found the light at the end of the tunnel from those situations. As much as it sucked to go through that, and as much as I wish I had the loves back in my life, like I've never learned more resilience than I have through the family that I have, through the people that I've lost. I've never had a better understanding of who I am because you guys have helped teach me that. One of the questions I struggle with and I have for you is the faith. Like me and God have always had a struggle, and I've a lot of times felt like I've been picked on in my life. And like, why would you allow this? Why would you allow this? But I've had to reframe and say, life happens, and what is the good I'm going to do with it? My question for you is, you reframed so much, but has there ever been a point when you were just so angry with God and you're just like, why are you bullying me? Like, I thought you loved me. Because a lot of people, I think, get stuck in the pain and they wonder, if you're a God of love, why, when you don't feel like you get answers, you feel like everywhere you turn there's a wall, or you feel abandoned and you just don't have those answers, when you can look at other people and they get it. So I don't know if my aha moment just hasn't come yet or what, but that is a serious question I have for you. Like, how can you help people to reconcile that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, why do bad things happen to good people is like the paradox inside of faith that no one can answer. I mean, trust me, I have thrown my fists in the air and been very, very upset. God's big enough to handle our upset. Number one, like I can get super, super angry and he's still good. Like it's okay. The only thing I can say for me, at least in this last season, there's the verse, I think it's James 4:8, draw near to God and he'll draw near to you. And so I found in the midst of my hardest things, going against my instinct of pushing away and being angry and just like sitting out back on a patio of peace in a conversation that was like, man, I got to humble myself here and come a little closer. Let's see if there's anything that you might afford me in proximity. And it's happened, you know? So, but I don't know, you know, everyone's journey of faith is just a little bit different. What I can tell you for sure is the power of your willingness to take the perspective that you uniquely have in having been through everything that you have and bringing the light that can still exist, even though you could otherwise be angry and bitter and whatever else, because God knows you deserve to be whatever you want. The kind of hope that you might afford someone who's going through something that isn't necessarily even as bad as something that you've gone through could be the difference in someone still being alive, could be the difference in the way that they think about their ability to get through it as well. So in a wild way, I think God's going to use you to just be a profound light on anyone who's going through anything. And if you believe that, trust, like the intention of your creator may in fact be that after having been brought through every single thing that no one should ever have to experience, you could be someone that can say, and yet I still have hope. And yet I'm going to show up for my life as a thing that maybe affords them permission to do the same.
That was the other thing I was going to say. I feel like God made me for bigger things. I don't know what that looks like yet. I've been a writer for over a dozen years, but I didn't get my tattoo till I was 38. But the first part is it's my journey through words. That's my tagline as a writer. And that's how I express myself. And it's on my left hand because that's what I write with. I put it on my left forearm because the vein that goes from your ring finger goes to your heart. And so the things that are most important to me, my faith, my marriage, my kids, yellow butterflies remind me of my babies. There's a butterfly on my M and the wings in the shape of an R for my dad, Rick, and for Ricky, River, and Rain, my babies in heaven. And I will not waste a moment anymore in bitterness. And instead, I will make them proud. And so my hope is to encourage whatever catalyst that might look like for those who are hurting to say, yes, that mattered. It might not look like it to somebody else, but to that one person, that's my hope. And so I just thank you and Brendan so much for just the simple words of reframing, for reverence for life, and for just being resilient in the fact that growth and sorrow and joy can live simultaneously, because it has been life-changing for me. So thank you.
So real. Good for you. I'm proud of you, Wendy. Honestly, you're going to honor the legacy of your humans, all of them, with every good thing you do for the rest of your life. I'm proud of you.
Hi, Dave. Oh my God.
Ruth, is that you?
Yes, it's me. I cannot believe I have the same age as you, and I think I went the same experience like you. No, just kidding. But it sounds a lot like you. I wish some Dave or Brendon would be in my life. I wish it could have been years ago. But, never late to learn. I'm learning a lot. Thank you for all the good information. And a lot of them I'm learning also. But one of the things that I am still working on that, or a lot of things, but, it's kind of working now for me. I have pretty good focus and a lot of things. But emotional, I want to ask you, since you already mentioned about the Untethered Soul, some books that you are working on that I already had on mine, but maybe you can give me one specific that I can take a look instead of going and searching. But my question is, I am pretty good like focusing during the day. Like today I can be sitting here or reading, whatever I'm doing, I'm working. But at night, my brain start working like, I go to sleep pretty good, but if I wake up in the middle, it comes all the ideas like the monkey jumping to everywhere. So how can I do? I'm pretty good during the day. I can go and focus my mind on some specific things and those things, but at night, I try a lot of things. That's what I say. If you suggest me a book and you give me your advice, that would be awesome.
Well, I'm not going to suggest a book because I have myself come through a window of waking up at night thinking about a lot of things. And the thing that most fundamentally changed the way I was able to sleep through the night was, and it somewhat comes out of the ideas of Untethered Soul, somewhat out of some therapy I'm doing, out of like trying to really get in touch with myself and separate the parts that exist in my being from myself as the observer of those parts. I made a relationship with anxiety. And to me, when we're up and the mind is just spinning, a lot of times, I don't want to put this on you, but a lot of times we find ourselves, I think, contemplating the possible outcomes of things that have not yet happened. And I would spin. I would get overwhelmed in all of the variables that could and probably would never, but could happen. I made a relationship with my anxiety. I went so far as to name it. My anxiety's name is Clark. Don't ask me why. And I now, when I start to feel anxious, will actually sit and in silence out back and invite Clark to a table in my mind to ask anxiety, hey, Clark, what is on your mind? Why are you here? right? Because anxiety inside of us is playing a role that it believes to be there to help us. It's not there to make us feel uncomfortable. It's not there, but it's there playing a role that it believes serves us best. So now as I'm in this conversation with my guy, Clark, he's able to represent to me what role he believes himself to be playing. And what I've found for myself is 9 times out of 10, Clark is trying to draw my attention to an area of my life where there is still just enough ambiguity because of the absence of a plan, that if I were to direct my focus and spend a little time understanding that ambiguity, that I might be able to develop a little bit of a plan, create a little bit of structure, involve some outside resources, ask a mentor, spend time in community or conversation that would alleviate a little bit of the feeling that I have that allows all of these possible scenarios that are likely to never happen but still exist to now go away. Because as I honor Clark, as I honor my anxiety being there, it allows me to not demonize the fact that I have anxiety. It also allows me to disassociate from being anxious. I am not anxious. I am the observer of Clark, a part inside of me who believes himself to be playing a role that is meant to serve me. And as I am able to now be in a conversation with him, and if someone here is like, this sounds crazy. Trust me, I thought it was crazy when it was introduced to me too. And then I started making this relationship in a way that fundamentally changed the exchange of what role that anxiety believed itself to be playing. And now I can tend to the ambiguity that has not yet been afforded a plan with just a little bit of planning during the day, not at night. The nighttime stuff just isn't availing itself. So part of why I have this commitment to peace on my back patio is that I like to sit and listen for where there are emotions that are sitting, stirring, to ask them what role they believe themselves to be playing. I do it in the morning so that throughout the day, if I have a conversation with any of those feelings or even just aware of them existing, I might tend to them before I get to bed. I also have a practice, no social media, no devices for the hour leading into going to sleep. I tend to read just a little bit, but I sit on the back patio and enjoy peace as a disciplined intention for 30 minutes prior to going to bed, just about every single night. I tend to play some worship music, have a conversation with God, gets me back to neutral, gives me some perspective, and I'm able to fall asleep way easier than I could before. I hope that helps.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ruth.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.